What's going on, all you mentees? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition. And because you demanded it, here are my top 10 favorite Marvel Omnis that were released in 2022. So let's get started with this list. And welcome back, everybody. So, here we are, 2023. What am I still doing talking about books that came out in 2022? Well, that's because some of you suggested that, hey, why don't you expand on that list? You really wanted to talk about this particular omnibus that you put in your top 10 collected editions. And I thought, well, yeah, I guess I could do that. So some of these books you may have seen in that video already, the top 10 collected editions or the top 10 reads of this year. But these are my list of favorite releases from Marvel Comics that came out in 2022, whether they be reprints or whether they be brand new editions or expanded editions in some cases. We'll be doing my top 10 DC Omnis released in 2022 tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Now, every one of these I've done an overview of. If you want to go back and watch the videos on that, all you got to do is click on the playlist and go to Omnibus Reviews, and you should be able to find them that way. So this is not in any particular order when I'm talking about these books. As a matter of fact, they're in release order, so I'll be putting somewhere down there when these were originally released. All right. Again, this is my top 10 list. Some of these are books I've wanted for years. And then again, I want to know what your top 10 Marvel releases are, or top 5, or even your number 1. What's the one book that came out in 2022 that you thought, there's no way that book was ever going to come, and it finally did, and now it's in your hands? Before getting started, though, smash that like button, please. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and ring that bell for notifications. We do put out videos every day. All right. In publishing order, I guess? It's not really chronological. So, yeah, let's do it. In publishing order. Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman, Omnibus Volume 1. This is a book that I think was supposed to come out in 2021, but it got delayed, but it finally came out in 2022. And for the people that missed out on the release early in 2022, as a matter of fact, it came out in January, they are restocking the book sometime early this year. I don't have a specific date, but when I do, I'll make sure to put it on our Saturday stream and share on our social media. So make sure you're following us somewhere, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. But yes, this is a book that was most wanted. It got voted into our top 20 reprint poll that we put out every year around February and March. And Marvel was kind enough to reprint it. It's the beginning of this epic story that really doesn't get finished until Secret Wars. It's got wonderful artwork in here by Steve Epting, Nick Dragotta, Del Eaglesham, just to name a few of the artists. And this is when you see that Jonathan Hickman is playing the long game, not just with the Fantastic Four, but with the entire Marvel universe. If you have missed out on it and you've ever been curious about reading Fantastic Four, Jonathan Hickman's work, this is the one that I would suggest reading as far as like his Marvel comics. And this is coming from a guy named Uncanny. Although House and Powers of X was good too. That's a tough one. Maybe I'll do that as a separate video. All right, but this is the one that is kicking off this list. Moon Knight Omnibus Volume 1. Now, this is an omnibus that came out in 2021, but it came and went, so Marvel decided to reprint it in 2022. And this is where everything begins for the character of Mark Spector, Jake Lockley, Stephen Grant. Well, you can find out by reading it, because he does have a complicated beginning. Not so much, honestly. He doesn't really have a complicated beginning during this particular run. But when Bill Sienkiewicz takes over the run, and that's mainly the run I'm talking about here, the Doug Moench and Bill Sienkiewicz run, it really throws you into a loop, and it really puts you into a different level of storytelling. And you can see why Bill Sienkiewicz, even back then, was one of the most wanted artists that everybody wanted to work with, and people wanted on their books to change the look of their books. And oh my gosh, it is just the stuff of freaking legends here. So if you've never read it, I've done a proper overview. Like I said, I've done overviews of these, and I've gone in depth as to why this character is so intriguing and why he's so much more than a poor man's Batman, as I've heard so many people call him, because he is a very complicated character. Now, in here, you're also going to meet his supporting cast. You're going to meet his main cast of villains that play a role and keep coming back all the time. This also contains the work of Keith Giffen, David Anthony Kraft, Bill Mantlo, Stephen Grant, no relation to the character, But I think this makes for a proper introduction to the character if you want to go back to the very beginning, including, of course, his first appearance in Werewolf by Night. But it's a little bit of a slow burn, but when you get there, and when you get to the Bill Sienkiewicz stuff, oh my gosh, it is just on another level. Captain Britain Expanded Omnibus. So not only did they reprint the omnibus that I thought there was no way they were going to ever reprint, but they added issues to it, making for a hell of an experience. Because not only do you have the classic stuff in here, you also get the Alan Moore stuff in here. So all that Alan Moore wrote is in here as far as the character of Captain Britain. But you get the Chris Claremont era, so you get the era where Captain Britain was starting to come over to the Marvel side of comics, not just Marvel UK. And you get to see his enemies, you get to see how bad the Fury is compared to, like, when they show up later on in Pages of Uncanny X-Men. I mean, they were freaking the stuff of nightmares during these stories. And again, Alan Moore, you get some early Alan Davis artwork. And I'm just glad that they were able to reprint this and make it into an expanded book. I know it, and I realized that they left out 2 of the books that were in the original printing, the Captain America by Mike Grunwald stories that featured Captain Britain. But I'm hoping those will eventually be collected in a Mark Grunwald Captain America omnibus one day. But as far as this collection, this is one of the best runs. And I mean, we ended up getting 2 Alan Moore runs collected in omnibus format this year. 2022, man. Or not this year, but last year. Last year, still thinking that this is 2022. Thor by Jason Aaron, Omnibus Volume 1. Now, this isn't my favorite Thor run, but it is up there. It is a really good starting point for the character of Thor. But it was mainly you guys that made me appreciate how much this book was wanted. Anytime I did breaking news, for over a year and a half, I kept getting asked, when are we going to get Jason Aaron's run on Thor? You know it's got to be coming, right? It's got to be coming. And when I found out, of course, I couldn't say anything until a few months later, but that was one of my favorite announcements that I ever made, was the release of this book. And then when it finally came out, people got it, and oh my gosh, some of the covers went quick, because there were a total of 3 covers. This is one of the rare occasions where Marvel decided to do 3 covers instead of just a regular 2. But yes, this is where you're going to get the story of Thor, and then the story of Jane Foster. I'll leave it at that in case you don't want to know any spoilers. And it leaves enough to get a volume 2, so we still have like War of the Realms and King Thor to collect. But this is such a great start. I'm hoping that we will get a volume 2 sometime in 2023, maybe early 2024, but I'm hoping it'll be late 2023. But oh my gosh, this run, solid. I'm so glad that it's finally here. It finally came out this year, and everybody asking me for it. Finally, hopefully you all got your copy of it. X-Men Fall of the Mutants Omnibus. My favorite X-Men event, a book that had been out of print for a decade. As a matter of fact, it wasn't an omnibus when it originally came out. It was just an oversized hardcover and impossible to find. We voted for it. You all voted and made it your #1 choice in 2021. And in 2022, Marvel gave us the reprint. Oh, man. So jealous of the people reading it for the first time. And if you didn't like it, I'm sorry. It happens to be my favorite Marvel event. I love the 3 different teams dealing with their own issues. And I know it's not a review of the book. I'm going to try to pump my brakes a little bit because I could go on forever. But if you do want to see a thorough review of it, by all means, just make sure you go to the Omnibus Reviews playlist and check it out. But yes, you have the 3 teams of X-Factor, you have X-Men, and you have the New Mutants. X-Factor's dealing with Apocalypse and the betrayal of a team member, and the 4 Horsemen, and the X-Men are dealing with the adversary and what it means to actually make the ultimate sacrifice. And then you have the New Mutants, who are dealing with the Animator, and they're dealing with the Right, and, well, they're about to find out what the meaning of loss is. And dang, it's such a good story. Even though there are 3 different teams doing 3 different things, love this book, and I'm so glad that it got reprinted this year. Last year. Why did I swear I'm stuck on 2022. It wasn't even that great of a year. The Incredible Hulk by Peter David, Omnibus Volume 4. Now, my reason for this book being on this list might be different than why I made it into your top 10 list. You could be a huge fan of Peter David. You could be a huge fan of the artists that are in here like Adam Kubert, or just a fan of the Hulk. But for me, this goes back to that very first phone call that I had with David Gabriel at Marvel, and asking him a few years ago why we don't have a Peter David Hulk omnibus. Why were we getting things like Red Hulk? And within a week, we were emailing back and forth, and he was like, hey, by the way, do you want to announce that we are going to do a Peter David Hulk Omnibus Volume 1? And I said, hell yes. And my life has never been the same. So this brings the stories to a close. There is a Volume 5 that collects, of course, when he came back to the book. But this is his first run. This is 10 years worth of work in all 4 books. And even if the Hulk is not your favorite character, you can appreciate so much of the stories in here. And I'm so glad that it's all collected. Not only are we going to get a Volume 5, but we're also going to get a Maestro Omnibus, which is just crazy. And we're getting a Spider-Man 2099 Omnibus. We're getting a Genis Vell Omnibus. And it just makes me happy. I know Peter David, he's got a GoFundMe, and he's had a lot of health issues. So I think in this way, at least he gets to see how much his stories are loved, and he gets to see how many fans he has out there that care about him in the way that his stories change their lives. So yeah, this book absolutely means a lot to me. Miracleman Omnibus. You saw it on my top 10 collected editions list, and it rightly belongs on that list. And it rightly belongs here, so I'll be really quick. Alan Moore, Gary Leach, the most probably mature Marvel story that has been collected in omnibus format. Yes, even beating out Punisher Max by Garth Ennis. Just the things that we're doing in here, so ahead of their time. I've said it so many times on my channel, and I keep on saying it. Without Miracleman, there would be no Swamp Thing. There would be no Vertigo. There would be no Sandman. All these things that I've come to love about independent comics, there would not be. Not without this story. So it is a very important story in the history of comics, and I'm so glad that it finally got released in omnibus format this year. Hopefully, when Neil Gaiman is done with his story, along with Mark Buckingham, we can get an omnibus collection of their Miracleman story in omnibus format. But that was redundant. Of course, it's an omnibus format. But yes, go and check it out if you haven't yet. The Spectacular Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1. Now, the main reason I'm adding it to my list is because of the importance of this book. This is the third ongoing Spider-Man title. We had Amazing Spider-Man in the 60s, and then later on we had the Marvel Team-Up book, and then Spider-Man fever just kept going, and everybody wanted more Spider-Man, so they decided to give us the Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, as an ongoing series. And this is a period of time when, if you wanted to write Spider-Man one day, Amazing Spider-Man, this is kind of like the tryout place. This is where you went to see if the editors were like, okay, that guy can actually draw a Spider-Man story really well, or hey, that Roger Stern guy is a pretty nifty writer. Let's put him on Amazing Spider-Man. But this also shows the early work of Frank Miller, who, of course, actually his first story in here is the one with Daredevil and Spider-Man. So this opens up the doors to other collections like Web of Spider-Man or Sensational Spider-Man or Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, both series. But really, the Peter David and Mike Wieringo series that they started off. So yes, it gives me hope that the Spider-Man universe is just as popular as the X-Men universe, where we have X-Men, Uncanny, X-Factor, New Mutants, Excalibur. We can have collections of Spectacular Spider-Man. I know Spider-Man Unlimited has been collected in a lot of those, but heck, that could even get his own collection. But yes, we can have Web of Spider-Man. We can have the Scarlet Spider collections later on. And like I mentioned, the Sensational Spider-Man. So hopefully that opens up doors and shows Marvel that people really want more Spidey in omnibus format. All right, guilty. You caught me. The entire reason I'm doing this list and the list tomorrow is just so I can have an excuse to add New Warriors Omnibus Volume 2 to a list. No, I'm not. But it was a really good chance to add it to the list for sure. This book is very important to me. Now, it's important to me because this symbolizes everything this channel is about. And that is being the person in between the fan base and the publishers. And this was such a welcome surprise when I was told this was coming out, because it was one of my books that I'm like, oh, I'd love to see this collected one day. Because we all have those books, right, that we don't think anybody else wants, like Nth Man. I keep joking about those. But this book means so much to me, and I hope so many of you got to read the first volume and fell in love with it, and you want to keep reading it, because that's the whole point of my channel, is I want to share the stories that I love and enjoy, and hopefully some of you will as well. So this symbolizes the relationship between Near Mint Condition, me, Uncanny Omar, and Marvel Comics, and the fans. And it's just been a wonderful, crazy, unbelievable ride that I'm so grateful for. So yes, of course, this had to be one of my favorite releases this year. And hopefully they made it into some of your lists too, out there, I hope. Wow, did we do 10 books already? But here we are with my final pick, Black Panther by Christopher Priest, Omnibus Volume 1. My favorite Black Panther run, the run that got me huge into the character, and one that I wanted to see in omnibus format. I remember announcing the Ta-Nehisi Coates omnibus, and I was like, oh, you know what would be really cool is if we got a Black Panther by Christopher Priest omnibus. We got some early years, we got the Wakanda omnis, and I'm sure more will come, you know, because I do want to see the Don McGregor stuff collected, the stuff in the 90s, and then, of course, the return of Jack Kirby. We still have Reggie Hudlin's run, so there's a lot of runs they could collect, and, of course, the second volume to this to wrap up that era of Black Panther by Christopher Priest. So some of the complete collections were out of print, and again, this is one that's a little bit of a slow burn, and I completely understand it, and some of the artwork may look a little too 90s for people, but if you give it a chance, you're in for one hell of a ride. So you will find out why he is the man with the plan, the Black Panther. And that is my top 10 Marvel Omnis released in 2022. If you're interested in some of these books, I think all of them are still in print, knock on wood, and coming back for a restock, like Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman. Check out our sponsors. If you live in Europe and are interested in buying and pre-ordering Omnis, then you should definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices for Marvel and DC books within the EU. Flat rate shipping of €12 for all EU countries, bulletproof packaging, and all emails will be answered within 24 hours. They offer a huge selection of out-of-print books. Just head over to waltzcomicshop.com for more great deals and rare titles. And for a limited time, you can use the code NEARMINTCONDITION, all one word at the checkout, to get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order of over €40. Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for Omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed listening to my reasons why these books made it on my top 10. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what your top 10 Marvel Omni releases were in 2022. Again, I'll be doing the top 10 DC Omnis released in 2022 tomorrow. And if you're wondering where my list of my most anticipated collected editions of 2023 is, that video is coming out next week, because gotta make sure these books are still coming. That's one of the things. Like, I want to make sure there's nothing that has been changed with the shipping. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. You made it all the way to the end. Why not subscribe, right? Yeah, sounds like a plan. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you to our patrons for making videos like this possible. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.